To Roth or not to Roth from Matt and Kathy. All right, so a couple I'm working with today, they're from Texas. They want to move out of their city out home and into a smaller house, more land house in the sticks. All right, Matt, 61 years old, 60, 61. Kathy, 58, 59, something like that. He's thinking about hanging up the boots. All right, he's like, well, I just want to make sure I can do it. And that's what the numbers were crunched on. So basically what he wants to do is next year in 2025, he wants to buy, or 2026, he wants to buy a piece of land. And then the following year, he wants to put a house on it. All right. So what he's going to do, he's going to pay, he don't want any debt, so he's going to pay cash money for a piece of land that's going to cost $120,000. And then the following year, they're going to sell their house and use the proceeds to put a new house on. Everybody with me on that so far? So let me show you what the scenario looks like here. So you'll see in 2025, we're assuming no income, that he's going to retire. So we got no income until, what's his name? Matt is fully ensconced in Social Security here. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, basically 6 years of no income. 2025, they're going to buy a new car because he's driving an old Ford F-150, and they want to do some travel, right? So they got 70,000 of goals on top of 102,000 expenses. 102,000 would be property taxes, homeowners insurance. They're going to expect to pay over $3,500 a month in health insurance. They're like Obamacare. We looked at Obamacare, but if we get cancer or anything like that, the cancer centers in Texas, they don't accept their Obamacare stuff, so they're going to keep COBRA, and then they're going to stay on their employment retirement health care plan until they're on Medicare, even though it costs them like $45,000 a year. It's crazy. So you can see right here, their expenses 102. So their total expenses are 176. All right. Now they got about $150,000. Yeah, I think it's $150,000 or something like that in a brokerage account in cash. So the software assumes that they're going to pull from their brokerage account cash first, and that way their taxes are only $4,100 because they're basically brokerage account and cash are pretty tax friendly. It's the following year, though, that we get a little bit of a crunch here. So they need $107,000 to live on. That's day-to-day living. Plus, they want to buy that piece of land for $120, and we're inflating at 3% or whatever it is. So we're at $121. So here they need $230,000 of cash, but don't have it from anywhere other than their portfolio. And we're going to assume they're going to pull it from their pre-tax money because, like Matt said, he wants to make sure that he doesn't leave Kathy in a widow's tax trap. So they want to pull down their pre-tax money to avoid Kathy getting smoked when he dies. I completely agree with that. Not doing Roth conversions, at least not yet. So he's like, all right, well, if they do that, they're going to pay $48,000 in taxes this year because they're taking $230,000 out of a pre-tax account. Nah, I'm not so sure I like that. Now, the next year, they're going to sell their house for roughly $500,000. They're going to put a new house on their on that piece of land right here, costing $541,000, give or take. So they're going to have to come up with $40,000 between these two, plus $110,000 in which to live on. Right? They still need money to live on. A lot of people forget this. A lot of people say, "I'm just going to do this. I'm going to do that." I say, "Where's the money coming to live on, though?" We know for a fact the money that they got coming to live on right here is basically at the top of the 12% tax bracket. So anything above the 12%, anything above that you pull out above this amount right here is going to put you on the 22% tax bracket. So here's their here's their taxes. So you can see they're paying a significant amount of taxes on the front end because they're living off their pre-tax money. Hope this makes sense. All right, so now they're settled into their new house. Their expenses are pretty simple here: $107,000. They're going to pay $7,500 in taxes, an effective tax rate of about 7%. It's pretty good. Right now they live in Texas, no state income tax. Same thing here. But they got a goal here. This is to do some traveling, $22,000 traveling. So they're going to be living off $122. They got to pay $12,000 taxes. You can see this. Now what happens, though, once Social Security kicks in, now their taxes go way down. And when Kathy's Social Security kicks in, they're only pulling $14,000 a year from the portfolio. So in this case, their taxes are way down. So let me show you what that looks like. It looks like you see their big tax hit, a little bit, 5% effective tax rate, big tax hit. That's when they're buying that land right there, selling the house. So they're basically, this is just living off their pre-tax money. Look at that. It looks pretty good. When the pre-tax money is pretty much exhausted, there's hardly anything in RMDs anymore. A little bit of a widow's tax trap, but not much. I mean, look at that. when Kathy survives old Matt, she's in an effective 5% effective tax rate. That's just nothing. Now they're paying all the taxes on the front end. You're like, should we do all that? So let me show you what I showed them. I'm gonna go here. By the way, this is their total tax payments right here, $185,000 if they live off their IRA. Again, no Roth conversions, nothing. We're just living off our IRA. So we're gonna pay a total tax of $185,000, but we're gonna pay it basically all on the front end. And that's okay. I mean, that's pretty good. I mean, once these two payments are done, they're pretty much done with taxes. But still, I was like, I don't know if I like that so much. So then I said, what if we did this instead? Let me show you. Here, we're living off our Roth first. And you can see that doesn't look good at all. So here, because they got like $350 in a Roth. So here we're pulling this money from the Roth to buy the house, the remainder of the house to buy the land. We're pulling all from the Roth. So what's happening here is all we're doing is delaying RMDs here. So we're not paying any taxes here, but once the Roth is exhausted, the brokerage account's exhausted, now we're getting the full front of the full barrel, whatever it is, of the pre-tax stuff. And then RMD is going to kick in and we're going to get, I don't want to say slammed, but they're paying almost 3 times as much of taxes if they lived off their IRA first. So I was like, I don't know if I like that. So then I said, what if we did this? What if we had a compromise? All right, we said, let's pull money out of your Roth to cover the land purchase and pull $50,000 out of your Roth to cover the difference between selling your house and putting your house on the land. So again, they're going to come up with $120,000 for the piece of land plus $50,000 for the difference between the sale of their home and putting the house on. Said, what if we went into your Roth, we took out $120 and $50. And notice here our taxes are $269 as opposed to $185, so a little bit more taxes because we're not spending down the IRA as fast as we did before. And the reason we're not spending it down is because we're not paying basically $70,000 of taxes here. We're only paying 15 or so. Now we are stretching those taxes out longer, but not the same tax rate. And I'll show you what that looks like here. So here we're going to show you right there. So this is what it looks like. If we stretch it, if we use the Roth, we're always going to be an effective 12% effective tax rate until these couple years with Social Security that kick in. And again, it's 12% here, 15% here, assuming the Trump tax bill goes away. But whatever, it's the same tax rate here, 12 to 15, very, very flat, very flat. If we don't do that, though, I don't know if I got it up here. Yeah, right there. There it is. Right here. So here's the effective tax rate. You can see it's kind of all over the place. This is the effective tax rate, not the marginal tax rate, but I just wanted to show it to you. So, and then you get right here, right here. So this is using some of the Roth initially, all right? We're still under the 10% tax bracket, still under the 10% tax bracket. So in this case, we're actually using some of the Roth, not doing Roth conversions. We're using some of the Roth in which to reduce that massive tax that would happen here, right here. Look at that. I don't like that. Why pay 17.5% if we have other resources to avoid that? So we're going to use the Roth to narrow that down. Now, this means you are going to pay a little bit more tax on the back end. So we're going to go from a 5% effective tax rate to a 10% effective tax rate when, what's her name, Kathy, is a survivor widow. But I mean, she's in her late 80s. Okay, less than 10% effective tax rate is fine. All right, so then I said, what if we also do some Roth conversions? What would it look like? And you can see right here is a Roth conversion. So let's do Roth conversions. And I don't want to do that. And the reason we don't want to do Roth conversions here is because what we're doing here is we're filling up, if I can find it right there. We're filling up this to the extent of the 12 to 15% tax bracket. That's what we're doing. So this is without any Roth conversions. If we do Roth conversions, we're filling that up. Why? So, I mean, it's just, there's not a benefit there. We're filling it up so later we can pay in a 10% tax bracket. I mean, there's just not much of a benefit there at all. I mean, you can make an argument, you could do something. I'm not going to, if these guys decide to do that, I'm not going to yell at them, but just, it's not a huge enough benefit in my opinion. So, like, either way, you're basically filling this up, basically 5 years of filling this up to have these in the 10% tax bracket as opposed to essentially what being a 12% tax bracket. Doesn't seem like a big enough tax savings to me, and it's just not. It's not a big enough tax savings to really say Roth conversions are going to make or break us when Kathy is already below the 10% effective tax rate anyway. If you're below the 10% effective tax rate, and I say, let's go ahead and convert at 12 to 15%, you're like, I'm already below the effective 10% tax rate as it is. What's the benefit there to lose money today to avoid the same effective tax rate in the future? Not much. A bird in the hand is always better than two in the bush. So if I'm paying 10% tax later or 10% tax now, I'd rather pay 10% tax later. The only time a Roth conversion makes sense is if I'm going to pay 20% tax later and 10% tax now. That makes sense. But if in this case it's the same, it's basically a wash. And a wash always goes to the runner. A tie always goes to the runner. I don't do Roth conversions. Doesn't make sense. So in this case, again, like I talked about yesterday, go into the Roth, pull out some money to pay for this piece of land, reduce your taxes on the first couple of years of retirement. And you are going to pay a little bit more taxes over time, but when you're paying those little bit more taxes, a 10% effective tax rate when your wife is 85, 86, 87, that's just not a big deal. Not a big deal. Now, if he wants to take the whole thing from his IRA, he's going to reduce his taxes to about $185,000 total versus $270 if he does my strategy. And I get it. There's something to be said about that, but in of itself, I'm like, nah, I don't think it's worth it. But it's not me to say. It's up to the client. Anyway, I wouldn't do it. I'd pull my money from my Roth is what I would do to cover the tax burden here to kind of level that out. We want a seesaw. We don't want it to go one way or this way. We want it to be a little bit more level, and that's what we're doing. Love your thoughts. Don't forget to paw that like button. We'll see you.